The stage was set for one of the most dramatic finals in the history of African football. Senegal and host Morocco met in the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations final in Rabat in a match that promised drama given the quality of both teams and the storytelling arcs around star players from both sides. Senegalese football had been building toward a second continental title, and the Terrena Lions had come to the final with both confidence and a tactical plan. Morocco, as host nation, were chasing their first title in nearly half a century and had an abundance of attacking talent, including Ibrahim Diaz, the Real Madrid forward who had been the revelation of the tournament. The game itself was tense and cagey end-to-end, but neither side could break the deadlock within the regulation 90 minutes. By added time of normal time, the match remained 0-0 and the tension was palpable both inside the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium and across the African continent. The penalty incident that changed everything. It was in the 8th minute of stoppage time, at the end of normal time, that the pivotal moment arrived. Diaz went to ground in the Senegal penalty area under contact from El Hadji Malick Diouf, and after an initial reluctance from the referee, VAR intervened to recommend a review of the incident. Following the pitch side monitor check, the referee awarded a penalty kick to Morocco for the challenge on Diaz. This decision sparked immediate fury from the Senegal players and coaching staff, who felt it was at best a marginal contact and at worst an overzealous interpretation of the rules by the match officials. Nearly every Senegalese player turned toward their technical area in visible protest, while their coach Pape Bonathio stormed onto the pitch and instructed his side to leave the field in open rebellion against the referee's decision. Reuters reported that Thio directly instructed his players to exit the pitch in protest, adding to an extraordinarily rare scene in major football competitions in which an entire team walked off in defiance of the authorities. Reuters. 1. For nearly 15 minutes the match was halted as Senegal players remained off the field shouting and gesticulating toward match officials. Moroccan staff tried to calm their own players and supporters while the referee waited amid an atmosphere that was by now fractious and unpredictable. Eventually, under pressure from senior figures including Sadio Mane, Senegal's captain and one of the most respected figures in African football, the team returned to the field and the penalty kick was taken. The pressure on Diaz was unimaginable. By the time Diaz stepped up to take the penalty, it had been nearly 17 minutes since the original decision had been made. The break in play, the emotional turmoil of the Senegal protest and the hostile atmosphere inside the stadium all combined to create an almost unprecedented psychological burden on the young Moroccan star. Diaz had enjoyed a brilliant tournament and entered the final as Morocco's focal point of attack, yet the moment was extraordinary. The eyes of an entire nation and an entire continent were on him, opting for a Panenka-style penalty which requires delicacy and precision. Diaz chipped the ball lightly toward the center of the goal. Senegalese goalkeeper Edouard Mendy, a veteran of big matches and experience under pressure, made no dive and easily collected the effort effectively, ending Morocco's best chance to win the title in regulation time. Diaz's attempt was widely described by analysts as too weak and lacking conviction, and many commentators noted the disjointed circumstances leading up to the kick could have affected his focus. ESPN.com. 2. In the minutes that followed the miss, there was a moment of stunned silence and disbelief among the Moroccan supporters and players alike. The psychological lifeline that the penalty kick should have represented instead turned into a crushing blow. As one major sports outlet put it, this was a defining moment that simply slipped from Morocco's grasp and instead energized Senegal for what came next. ESPN.com. 3. The walk-off and the immediate aftermath. What made this situation even more extraordinary was the fact that Senegal's protest earlier in the sequence had almost derailed the match entirely. The decision to leave the pitch was unprecedented at this level of the game and prompted widespread condemnation from football authorities. FIFA President Gianni Infantino publicly condemned the behavior of some Senegal players and staff, insisting that walking off the pitch undermined the authority of match officials and set a dangerous precedent for the sport. He stressed that respect for referees and competition rules is foundational to maintaining integrity in football and blamed both violence from some spectators and the walk-off on a lack of professionalism and discipline by those involved. Reuters. 4. Meanwhile, the Confederation of African Football (CAF) announced it would review the incident and consider disciplinary actions against any individuals found guilty of misconduct during the chaotic final. Critics argued that Diaz's actions were irresponsible and could have led to greater unrest both inside the stadium and beyond. The Moroccan coaching staff led by Walid Regragui also expressed deep frustration at how the sequence of events had unfolded. Regragui later suggested that the extended delay before the penalty fundamentally disrupted Diaz's rhythm and concentration, and that the team deserved better treatment from the officials for the way the situation was managed. Africa Soccer 5. Despite the controversy, Morocco would eventually go on to lose the match in extra time after Senegal's Pape Gueye scored a late winner. This added insult to injury for the Moroccan side, turning what should have been a historic opportunity into a night of heartbreak. The deeper analysis of Diaz's penalty attempt from a purely technical perspective. A Panenka in a penalty shootout scenario requires supreme confidence and precision. Players usually deploy this technique only when they sense the goalkeeper will dive early or when they are supremely confident in their own mental composure. In this case, the easy save by Mendy suggested that Diaz misread both his own psychological state and perhaps underestimated the goalkeeper's discipline. Mendy remained composed under pressure and neutralized the attempt comfortably. The timing of the penalty was also a significant factor. Players at this level prepare for rhythmic sequences of play and set pieces during normal match flow. A penalty is taken after a brief pause and the player has a straightforward routine to prepare mentally. The unprecedented delay disrupted this familiar process, and every minute that ticked by only increased the tension on Diaz, forcing him to replay in his mind not only the occasion itself but also the crowd noise, the protest, and the broader consequences of failure. This extended pause was cited by analysts as a key contributor to the mistimed and poorly executed kick. ESPN.com, too. Another layer was the emotional weight of the history on the line. Morocco had not won the Africa Cup of Nations in 50 years, and this would have been a crowning achievement for Diaz, who had embraced Moroccan nationality after a career in Spain. Talking afterward, Diaz expressed his remorse and sorrow, taking full responsibility for the miss and apologizing publicly to supporters, saying the moment hurt his soul and that he carried the weight of the loss for his nation. TNT Sports 6. The question of fairness and refereeing decisions. Controversy surrounding this match did not begin with the penalty award but actually earlier in stoppage time, when Senegal had what appeared to be a legitimate goal disallowed. The disallowed goal added fuel to the perception among Senegal supporters and players that the officials were biased in favor of the host. This perception was then amplified when the referee later awarded the penalty to Morocco after VAR intervention. Critics of the decision pointed to the sequence as evidence of inconsistent refereeing standards and poor use of VAR, and suggested that the earlier decision not to award Senegal a goal had created a narrative in the minds of players and fans that the home side was being favored. From a professional officiating standpoint, referees are required to apply the laws of the game consistently regardless of context. Whether a goal should be disallowed or a penalty should be awarded depends on the specific infractions and the interpretations of the laws by the match officials. The fact that VAR intervened on the penalty decision but not on the earlier Senegal goal gave rise to confusion and frustration in real time and allowed narratives of injustice to take root quickly among supporters and players alike. These sequences illustrate the challenge that officiating bodies face in high-stakes games where every decision is magnified and subject to intense public scrutiny. The referee Jean-Jacques Ndola and his team were placed under enormous pressure, and every call was going to be debated fiercely. In the aftermath of the final, the claims that Morocco paid the referee, one of the more toxic and unfounded claims that circulated on social media and some fringe outlets in the hours after the match, was the allegation that the Moroccan Football Federation had paid the referee behind the scenes to influence the match outcome. These claims have no substantiated evidence and no credible source supports the major verified reporting on the AFCON final from trusted international outlets such as Reuters, Associated Press, ESPN and others did not report any proof of bribery or misconduct by the Moroccan Federation or any match officials. Any claim that money changed hands to influence referee decisions remains in the realm of rumor and speculation. It is common in the age of social media for fans to seek explanations beyond sporting factors when emotions run high and national pride is involved. Football Controversies often generate conspiracy theories, especially when teams from powerful or influential nations are involved. Rumors about bribery or corruption are particularly frequent in African football discourse given a long history of governance challenges in some parts of the continent. However, to repeat such claims as fact without evidence would be irresponsible and defamatory without verified proof. A responsible journalistic analysis must therefore treat these bribery claims as unverified allegations that have circulated among certain fan communities but have no basis in verified reporting or official investigations. Without evidence from CAF, FIFA, or independent investigators of wrongdoing, financial incentives to referees remain speculation and should not be presented as fact. Football governance bodies have mechanisms to investigate allegations of corruption and match fixing, and if credible evidence emerged, it would be subject to formal review. Those mechanisms were not reported as being triggered in this case. As of the latest credible reporting, the legacy of this final and what it means for African football. The 2025 AFCON final will be remembered not for a tactical masterclass or a dazzling expression of attacking football, but for the extraordinary emotional and psychological swings, large-scale protests and heated debates. OFC finals should be occasions that celebrate the beautiful game, but this one highlighted fractures in perceptions of fairness, officiating and sportsmanship across the continent. Morocco's heartbreak and Senegal's furious protest are both testaments to how much this trophy means to nations with deep footballing cultures. The events of the final have ignited debates not just about the decisions in that match but about officiating standards across African competitions, the use of VAR, consistency in refereeing, and the responsibilities of coaches and players in maintaining professionalism under pressure. For Ibrahim Diaz personally, the miss will be a defining moment in his career. It is rare for a player to take a penalty under such extraordinary circumstances and fail in such a public way. He has been lauded for his honesty in apologizing to fans and accepting responsibility for his miss publicly, and emotionally his resolve to continue growing and performing at club level and potentially for Morocco will shape how this moment is remembered in years to come. On the Senegal side, there are lessons about discipline and the consequences of protest. Instructing players to walk off the pitch was condemned by governing bodies and raised questions about respect for the authority of match officials. Coaches at this level are expected to model discipline and restraint, especially in moments of disagreement. More broadly, African football now faces the task of learning from this episode to improve officiating, remove ambiguities in how VAR is used, and strengthen education for players and coaches about navigating high-pressure decisions without actions that undermine the sport's integrity. Conclusion: the Ibrahim Diaz penalty miss in the AFCON final was not simply a single kick that struck the woodwork of history. It was a convergence of pressure, controversy, emotion, expectation, and consequence. It was shaped by earlier officiating decisions that frustrated players and fans, the extraordinary scene of a team walking off the pitch in protest, and the psychological burden placed on a young player in an unforgettable moment. The unfounded rumors about bribery do not hold up under scrutiny and should be distinguished from the legitimate debates about officiating quality and VAR consistency that this game sparked. This final will be dissected for years, not because of one moment but because it encapsulated the highs and lows of competition, the passion of supporters, and the very human dimension of sport, where judgment, disputes, and drama remain part of its enduring allure. Football is drama, passion, conflict, redemption, heartbreak, and above all, it is unpredictable. This AFCON final was all of those things and more, and it reminds us that the beautiful game can thrill and torment in equal measure.